If you need consultations, holler at her. But
thank you, Walter.
Yes, for the person that's trying to figure it out, what's just one piece of advice that you would give them to kind of get the ball rolling?
Okay. This is a rule number one should always be to pay yourself first.
Whatever you heard of me ain't worthy to me. I'm just too cutthroat, verbal surgery. How you claim to know that stuff when your shelf's too high? I keep mine's at eye level. What you trying to hide?
Peace, 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 beautiful family. This is Dr. Walter Hidalgo, and this is the Know Thyself podcast. The Know Thyself podcast utilizes the metaphor of the shelf in order to extrapolate the self. And the way we do that is we invite guests to come in and share something about themselves. And before I introduce my guest, I want to stick to the agenda and really shout out a few of our sponsors and people that we're rocking. Shout out to my brother Emilio. I got his hat, Highly Living, which I highly recommend. I also want to shout out my brother June. He was a previous guest with his jewelry, which I'm rocking right now, right? I also want to shout out my brother Steve and his 2020 collections. All of these individuals, including the sister I have right now, is all Black-owned business. Because we have to support that. You understand? And finally, if you're looking for any coaching, any speaking engagements with youth, I do that. Definitely shoot me an email. Just contact me at knowthyshelftv@gmail.com. The website, probably by the time this come out, should be ready and fully operational, so you can find out all the stuff that we have to offer. And I have to get into the habit of definitely shouting out my book. 10-year anniversary this year, 2021, since I published my book, Beyond the Four Walls, The Rising Ministry and Spirituality of Hip Hop. All right.
Which I purchased.
Yes. Thank you to everyone that purchased that book. That book is the reason I've traveled this world. It's so deep like that. The other thing that we always do is I like to shout out a group of individuals and people. And today I want to shout out all my wine lovers. There's a reason for that. Anybody that drinks it, makes it, distributes it. We'll talk more about the reason I said that. I also want to shout out all my financial advisors. Anybody that's distilling information and wisdom on financial literacy, because that is so important right now, more than ever, because I think this COVID really showed the true colors.
Yes.
And we see the economical ramifications of that, right? So shout out to anybody that's empowering others to be on their financial P's and Q's, if you will. I also want to shout out all the people, I don't really like this term, but I'll say it, but anyone that's empowering people of color, or what they call it, BIPOC. That's another one. I never heard of that either. It's super weird, but
I had to look it up.
I had to look it up too.
I had to look it up. I'm like, what is this?
Yes. But shout out to anyone that's empowering, as that guy Jesus said, the least of these. You know what I'm saying? So shout out to everyone. And I say that because I have somebody here that I love, that I respect, that I admire, and as soon as I stepped into this place, I felt the G.O.D's presence once again, and I'm so happy because this is the first guest that we're having twice.
Yes!
You know what I'm saying? The first time it was all audio. This time we gotta go visual. I have here with me my sister, Burley Tuggle.
I know, what a name.
What's up, Burley?
Hey,
We're back.
I am. This is wonderful, man.
Yo, wow.
Because your podcast is young, and now, right? It's been going on, like a few years now.
You
So
were
I
one.
love it.
Yes, you were one of the first
Yeah.
people I interviewed. We're
Yeah.
talking what? Oh my lord, like 3 years ago,
Probably,
maybe.
at least.
So
At least.
so now, wow, by the time this comes out, we'll be deep into probably episode 50. But
Whoa.
as we speak right now, episode 42 just kind of came out. So just to add a little perspective and depth to this, you know what I'm saying?
I love it.
But as we always do, I like to contextualize things,
Sure.
just the same way we did last time. So I want to
Yeah.
bring it back to a younger Burley. Because you stay young.
Like young, like how young?
So bring us back. So you are originally from?
I'm from Atlanta, Georgia.
Shout out to my ATL shorty.
Yes. And I'm glad you said that because I usually say that and people are like, all right.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
so corny, but yes.
Yes, yes. Shout out.
ATL,
Yes.
Born and raised.
I love ATL. It's one of those places that I love to go visit. It's eclectic. It's vibrant. It's
Yes.
growing. You know
Yes.
what I'm saying? And I'm very much involved in this hip hop culture.
Of course.
And hip hop right now, Atlanta's got the microscope because
Of
all
course.
the beats, the
Of
rhythms and
course.
styles
Of course.
is coming from ATL right now. So
Absolutely.
that's pretty dope.
Absolutely.
Talk to us about a younger Burley. If we were to step into ATL back in the day, what would we see? What would we hear? What would we smell?
Wow. Okay, so I was born in 72.
And I'm 82.
See, you're 82, so obviously I'm a little older than
Yes,
you, Walter, but
yes.
really, when I think back, I think of the 80s,
Yeah.
right? Because in the 70s, I was a little kid, I was a little girl. I was a serious little kid.
Mm.
Yeah, I was really serious. And my mother's nickname for me was actually Granny.
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 Wow. So you were a young OG, what we call it.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I would definitely say that I'm definitely kind of an older spirit. I was a serious kid. Reading, was just kind of my way to just, get away and just, go places. We didn't grow up, with a lot of money, but, my mom always worked extra hard. She always had, she always worked late nights. So my brother and I, we always had every single thing that we needed, but we weren't rich or even middle class, we were working class.
Right.
But, my mom, basically, she just taught us that just because you're poor, you don't have to look poor. So, we were always dressed nicely, you know what I mean? And we had everything that we needed. But, you know what I mean? Every year we would move, and each year it would just kind of be like to the next level.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we actually moved around a lot. But, it was always to a better neighborhood, to a better school, to a better job. So, yeah,
And
that's the younger Burley.
And eventually it took you to Brick City.
Well, it took me to New York City.
First.
It took
Yeah.
me to New York. But before coming here, I went to Nashville for undergrad. So Vanderbilt, which was only 4 hours away, from ATL. When I graduated, I applied for grad school here, in New York City. Came to New York, and I've been here ever since.
Yeah.
So Walter, showing my age again, I've been up here for 25 years.
Wow.
25 years.
Yeah.
So,
And how was that transition? Because a lot of times people talk about international, immigrating from country to country, but we don't talk about internal migration, because Atlanta ain't New York. You know what I mean?
but it's also, it's not
Far
not the
stretch.
country,
Yeah.
So that's what I would tell people. Yes, I'm from the South, So, I always told people that I'm a Georgia peach, but I'm not a Southern belle. And I'm not from the country. I went to a farm one time, growing up, and that was a field trip.
That's right.
We had a dairy. It was called Mathis Dairy. Shout out to the ATO people. I don't even think they're there, or now obviously they're much bigger.
Yeah.
But field trip, Mathis Dairy, and I just remember getting some of the chocolate milk.
There you go.
But that's it. I'm not from the country. I'm a city girl. But what was different was just the culture and just the pace of things.
Right.
So, you might notice, I have a little bit of a Southern accent, but also we don't talk fast, or I don't talk fast. So just coming up here, everything was like boom, boom, boom. I just felt like people were rude, and I was accustomed to walking down the street, smiling at everybody,
right.
Good morning, and people looked at me like, what are you up to?
Yeah.
So I would definitely say for maybe like the first couple of months, I just kind of got my feelings hurt.
Yeah. No,
because, I'm trying to be cordial, trying to speak, to people, and people were looking at me like, I don't know you.
And it's interesting, going back to the music, there's a lot of conversations as to why a lot of the artists coming from Atlanta, the reason they're at such a pinnacle stage right now in the culture is because they work and collaborate with each other. Mm-hmm. There's that Southern hospitality of working communally versus here it's almost like a survival of the fittest mentality. So there's a lot of division in the culture. So and so I understand where you're coming from in that regard. I wanna talk about something super important because I met Burley some time ago, and it's similar again with the first interview that we had because I was in a very interesting space and place at that time. I had just finished grad school. You remember? Here we go again. And I, and because our stories are a lot alike, as many people, right? Living in one of the most expensive places on the planet, being a newly father to a beautiful Genesis. Shout out, she's right behind in the camera right now. Thank you. Oh, she gave me the high five. So I was in a place like, hey, I got to get my financial game up. I was inconsistent in my finances because I was laid off. I was going through so many stuff. But thank God I was able to eventually create a foundation. And here we are, right? We see the fruits. But at that time, I was lost financially. So eventually I saw this flyer, this ad, to attend this financial literacy workshop. I go to this church. Again, I think it might have been in Yonkers or somewhere in Westchester.
Okay.
And I met this woman. And her name is?
Trina Land.
Who continues to ring bells for me. And here's this woman. I still get touched by this because she said, we may be losing the race, but it's not over, right? Because this is a marathon and we still have time. And by we, BIPOC again. By we, because so many things have been stripped from us, taken away from us, we're catching up. Yes. But she said it's not too late. And it's never too late.
Right.
So I needed to switch it up. And Trina, I spoke to her, and then she became a light for me. And that light brought me an angel, and it was you. And I met with you, and we've had conversations after conversations about, all right, Walter, what do you want, and what are you gonna do willing to get there?
Right.
Burley is my financial advisor, and she really is one of the reasons I am in the place I am today, because your patience, your consistency about really making sure that my financial literacy is really there, so I can get to that place later in my life. And even now, I'm seeing that seed is now kind of sprouting little by little, you know, and I'm getting really touched by this. When I came here, I started to get teary eyes because I also see that happening with you. Because you're not only a client, you're the president. You feel me? As Biggie says, I always say that. It's so important. So
I'm a client too.
You know what I'm saying? Exactly. So
Trina found me.
Trina
found me. It was the same thing. I was at a women's conference.
Yeah.
And I was at the point where I wanted to become a homeowner. You know, I wanted to have a business. And I was trying to do stuff just on my own, just kind of educate myself. So, you know, I was reading like books about investing and going to all of these real estate seminars. And so I went to this women's conference, sat in pretty much on a similar workshop. And at the end, Trina and I actually go back. Because we worked together in our church. So Trina was, you know, on our board of trustees, and I was a trustee.
I didn't even
for
know
many
that.
Years.
Yeah.
So we already had a relationship, and I just remember her. She always worked so hard, and even as a trustee, it's like, you know, she worked nights and weekends, and you know, if we ever needed her to help us out with grants or proposals. So I knew that she was someone who I could trust. And just the timing of it was just perfect because, you know, I wanted to learn about finances, you know, and I thought that I had to do it by myself. And so the beauty of what we do is that you don't have, you know, you're not out there by yourself. And also, none of this information is rocket science. But the difference is that, you know, we didn't grow up with this information. And there's an information gap, right, between the rich, you know, and the poor. Or even if you're middle class, you know, and the wealthy, right? So I'm sure you've read Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Classic.
Right?
Yes, of course.
Rich Dad, okay, was very different from Poor Dad.
Yeah.
Poor Dad was wealthy in terms of knowledge, right? College educated, master's degree. So you would think, right, on paper that that dad would have everything because he's intelligent and he has, you know, invested in his education and theoretically, right, you would think that he would know more. Poor Dad was actually the wealthy dad. And this guy was a serial entrepreneur. And basically, I think he had maybe a high school education, but, you know, he always had a business, you know, and he had multiple ways of earning money.
That's right. Yes.
And so the education of Robert Kiyosaki began because he's like, wow, what is this guy doing? You know, my dad he's smart and, you know, everybody thinks that we have it going on, but financially, you know, literally you could have a PhD and be living from paycheck to paycheck.
That's right.
So
facts.
So it's real, and you know, living in New York City, that is very real. So you know, similar to you, you know, I got my master's degree and I was working and I quote unquote had a good job, and you know, but I wasn't getting ahead. So Trina, you know, came back into the picture, taught me some concepts, and I utilized them to purchase my first home, to start my business, and from there, just my mindset completely changed. You know what I mean? It's like one day it was like, oh my God, I'm penny pinching. The next day, it's not like I was wealthy. Nothing had changed, in terms of that. But what did change is just how I saw myself, and also how I made financial choices. Like once you have the information, then you can make better decisions.
And it's interesting. Yeah, and it's interesting since the last time we got together for the first interview, I've seen a growth of young, again, people of color, entrepreneurs that are, but not just entrepreneurs, but who are financially literate. And so I'm thinking of people like Wall Street Trapper.
Okay.
I'm thinking of the podcast Earn Your Leisure. Shout out to my brother Jamal who helped put that together too. Okay. And it's young men and women of color who are on social media talking about everything from cryptocurrency, about real estate, about Airbnb, about all these hustles and stuff, stocks. But it's people that look like you and I that are just telling folks like, you can do this too, right? And I talk a lot, and we've been talking about this too. I talk a lot about deconstructing the 9 to 5. It's not to take it away, but as you said, you can't put all your eggs in one basket. Like it's, I like what Dame Dash always said. I don't like working for somebody that I'm smarter than. That's kind of cocky and arrogant, but
very much so.
I know, and I know Dame. Shout out to Dame. He can be a little, but
forward thinking.
Yeah, because in a lot of ways, I understand that. Because I've been in places in my life where I feel like I have a lot to offer in the room, and nobody ever said, Walter, what do you think?
Right, yeah.
It's always the worker,
yeah.
do.
Yes.
And unfortunately, that doesn't allow room for creativity,
right,
for growth, so people stay stagnant.
Yes.
But when we talk about financial literacy,
yes,
I'm going back to the same thing I said last time.
Okay.
Spiritual, financial empowerment.
Okay, yes.
Because it's interesting to me that I didn't know Trina was part of the advisor in your church, you said, right?
And I'm glad you said that because she always puts God first.
Exactly.
And, right? When you meet her, you might not see that, but she's serious about this being, a mission.
And
for
when
her, it's
exactly,
it's not a job, right? It's a career opportunity, but for her, it's about really just changing the game. Just it's a cultural shift.
Correct.
And she's really trying to bridge the generational wealth gap.
Exactly.
And part of our company's mission is that we really see financial literacy as a crusade.
Yeah.
So that right there just tells you, just the mindset. Like, okay, it's not a game, really. It's like, okay, it's serious, but, at the same time, it's something that everyone can have access to. And, that's the difference.
And it's correct. And it's interesting because the place I met Trina was at a church.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So she's dipping and dabbing everywhere. And I love that.
The people.
Yeah. As I always ask folks, I'm going to ask you this without giving all the secrets, because if you need consultations, holler at her. But
thank you, Walter.
Yes, for the person that's trying to figure it out, what's just one piece of advice that you would give them to kind of get the ball rolling?
Okay. Rule number 1 should always be to pay yourself first.
Yeah.
Pay yourself first. And when you're struggling to pay your bills, right, you have the mindset of, I can't be late on a payment, and you're always giving your money to somebody else. So what I had to learn, right? Even when I was struggling, that I can't take every single penny that I've earned or that I've sweated for and give it to someone else. So, even if you have to start small, right? If you're in a position to save anything, on your job, usually, there's a minimum. 1%, 2% of your paycheck.
Right.
Start small. And then every single year you can increase your contributions. Okay? And then, even before you get to that point, you should at least have a checking account and a savings account.
Correct.
And the savings account should really be for saving. It's not where you're dipping, right?
Right.
Every time you're short on something that you don't really need. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, it should be a true, just automatic thing that you set up. Every time I get paid, 10% is going to go into that savings account. Okay? And even better still, that should be a money market account, so that money is earning interest, but at the same time it's still liquid.
Facts.
And liquid just means that if you need to get to it, you can get to it, right? Without any penalties. So start there. And then once you have, a little more of that saved up, or once you get into the habit of saving, then you can do more. But, I know it sounds crazy, but do not give all of your money to the debt collectors.
Yeah.
I'm not telling you to pay your bills late, okay? So when you see this, I do not want
Right.
anybody to take away. She said, I don't have to pay my credit card bills on time. No, I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
I'm saying when you get paid, pay yourself first.
Facts. That's right. Because you gotta live in order to produce. So you gotta pay yourself. I really like that you said that. Pay yourself first. I want to switch gears right now because we did this last time. And I always say that I remind everyone that that guy named Jesus, his first miracle was turning water into wine.
Wow.
And I love wine. It's just one of those things that allowed me to really loosen up. And God knows, particularly when I'm in spaces of ministry and education, I got to tell people, loosen up, man. Let's open that bottle up.
Oh, definitely.
Talk to us about Divino tasting.
Yeah.
Where did that come about? All that
Yes,
stuff. Give us
absolutely.
from Genesis to now.
Okay,
Genesis.
see? Yeah, so as you can see, or you probably can't see because we're inside of my store.
Yes.
But this is my storefront, and this was a journey. I've had this business now for almost 12 years.
Wow.
And the foundation is that I just fell in love with wine. And I took a trip out to Napa Valley, or I should say San Francisco. Okay.
Yeah.
Went to San Francisco, and the purpose of the trip, though, was to go to Napa Valley. And my ex at the time, right, didn't really feel like taking me all the way to Napa Valley. So we only made it to Sonoma Valley. Now, in the wine world today, Sonoma and Napa, they're like this, okay? But, there was a time when Sonoma wasn't quite, at the level of Napa Valley. But anyway, tons of wineries, and I just fell in love with it. Came back home, started going to tastings all the time, started going to classes, and then I'm like, I want to put myself in this business. And, I had a day job though. So I was blessed because I had a quote unquote good job. So with a good job, right, I did have I had some disposable income. So I started taking all these wine classes and getting all of these certifications, all for the purpose of growing my business or putting myself in this industry. So the goal has been to open up a wine bar, but also to educate people, about wine, and not just any people, obviously people of color, women, and just anybody basically who has ever felt intimidated, right? Because, culturally, you know, when you think of wine, you know, you think of this, right?
Yeah.
Snobs, you know, with their pinkies up and you know, and it's very elitist. And I was like, no. You know, I started getting into people like Gary Vaynerchuk.
Oh, shout out to Gary V, the God.
And now, right? And now he's just Gary V.
Yeah.
But I used to watch his wine library podcast.
Yes, that's
and
right.
Oh my God.
Yes.
He was just so unorthodox. And he would taste the wines and he'd have his Jets bucket on the table. And I mean, it was cool. It was just so natural. And he would talk about the wines and all these terms that people normally, you know, when they're speaking about wine, right? He just made it so like fun, and I was like, oh my God, like, you know, I didn't know that wine could be that way.
Right.
So I'm like, oh my God, you know, with this knowledge that I'm gaining, you know, I want to be able to share that information, you know, with my people, basically. Yeah. And so that's when I started my business. And literally, I don't know if you can see this shirt, but it says the Sippers Delight Wine Tasting Social Club. Thank you, Genesis. And this is the meetup group that I started. Yes. So I formed my business in November of 2009. And then 6 months later, I started the Sippers Delight Meetup Club. Or actually, it was like 9 months later, okay? Because it was September, okay, 2010, okay? 10 months, technically, okay? And literally, the launch date was my mom's birthday. So this was September 18th, okay, 2010.
Shout out to Mom.
Mom, I'm telling you, my mom is the bomb, literally. So I started it. I said, I'm not going to wait for anything. Yes, I want to have a wine bar, but I'm not going to have that overnight.
Right.
So I need to build up, you know, like a following. So I just literally, I started having wine tastings on the first Wednesday of every single month since September of 2010. And I did that up until the pandemic hit. So 10 years later, 10 years in, right? And that took me from meeting up in coffee shops and restaurants and churches and anybody who wanted to do like a wine tasting, I would go to their homes. So it took me from there to opening up another storefront with business partners down the street. Shout out to the previous or the former Artisan Collective, doing that for 7 years. And then June of last year, of 2020, we shut that down. I'm sorry, 2019. We shut that down, and then I opened here in November of 2019. So, yeah, quite a journey. And then COVID came into the picture literally 4 months after my grand opening.
Wow, look at that.
4 months in. So it has definitely been a very interesting year. But, you know, God, you know, has always been in the picture, hence the name of my business, Divino.
Divino, divine.
Divino means divine.
That's right.
Yeah. So that is where the name comes from. But you might also notice that vino is within the word Divino, and vino obviously means wine.
It's always connected.
For those people who are like Divino, no, I'm not trying to be whatever, but literally, I like to think that I put the divine in the wine.
I like that, divine in the wine.
The divine in the wine.
And you know, there's a huge rise in our black sisters who are becoming entrepreneurs in this country.
Yes.
And it's such a beautiful thing.
Yes, it is.
What is the advice you would give that up-and-coming sister who's like, yo, I want to do this and that, but I don't even... Help me, Divino.
I would say that it starts with the vision.
Yeah.
And when you notice that it never goes away, right? Like a hobby is something you might pick up and you do it for fun. You might even be like gung ho about that, but you're not trying to build a life around it, right? You're not trying to project it into the future. You're like, hey, I love tennis, but I'm not trying to be Serena Williams, right? But this was like, yes, I love wine, and I could have stopped at that and just I could have just been a connoisseur, right? I love wine. I'm going to educate myself. I'm just going to eat well. I'm going to dine out all the time. But I was like, it just never went away. So I would say if there's something that you keep coming back to, then you are supposed to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say listen to that voice and do it.
Mm.
And even if you don't have all of the information or all of the resources, just keep moving towards,
That's right.
Whatever that goal is. Because I'm like, okay, I got to learn about wine, which obviously, that was a pleasure. So, that part wasn't hard, right?
Because it got to be fun too, right?
Classes and get the taste.
Yeah.
So that wasn't hard.
Mm-hmm.
But, when I told people that I wanted to open a wine bar, they're like, well, what do you do about wine? I was like, well, okay, so let me learn. And, but there's always something that you need, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or we think
That's
we
right.
need. And that's the thing that I've learned. I don't have to know everything. I know a lot. You should see my resume, Walter.
Yo, I already know.
I have too much on my resume, okay?
It's a CV at this point,
It is.
facts,
It's a CV. So I'm like, is that helping me or is that hindering me? Because I think that I need to know every single thing.
Mm.
So what I kind of learned with the partnerships and even, opening up this space, there's a time for you to learn and prepare yourself, but you're never going to know every single thing that you need, which is why we have other people, right?
Facts.
We have resources.
Yes.
And in the beginning, I'm like, well, I can't pay for this, and I don't have the money to pay somebody to do my website, and I don't have money. Okay, so you're going to waste time, because I think now that I have to be a web site developer and designer, and I need to teach myself how to code, by the way, and I'm wasting time.
Yeah.
So I had to learn to delegate in a sense, and I know
Yeah.
you're like, you don't have any employees, but delegate in the sense that I had to learn to let go of certain aspects.
Yeah. And
Like even with all the bookkeeping and stuff, I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm in finance, and I do this all the time, and that was the problem. That was my day job. I did that for 40 hours plus. So, do you really think I want to come home and do bookkeeping, all the, so it's like, okay, I can give that away. There are people who are paid to do that work, and they can do it better than I can.
Facts.
Because at my job, I wasn't a bookkeeper. I'm not a CPA because that's not really what my role is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm sure you know, right?
No,
even as an educator, right? You're just like, you know a lot, and you're like, because I'm smart, I can do it. I can do it myself, and I'm going to save all this money, but you're wasting time. So I think you have to figure out what you can do and what somebody else can do better.
Exactly. I was just gonna say that because it's like you find the people that you're weak in that they're strong in.
Yes.
And that's because it's like I realize I can't stretch myself so much, So what's the famous phrase? Work smarter, not harder.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
That is so true.
There's a time and a place to
There
work
is a
hard,
time.
but if you can double up your time by
Yes.
you doing this while someone else is
Yes.
helping fill out those voids, it's
Yes.
like that's how you can expedite and get to that
Yes.
place much more quicker. You know
Absolutely.
what I'm saying? So I totally
And
agree with
hard.
that.
It's
Yeah.
hard.
Oh.
I'm not going to let anybody, this is still my baby.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but obviously I'm growing a lot, and there are times when I do need help.
Yeah. No.
So
yeah.
I have to recognize that and be willing to say, okay, it's worth it for me to pay someone to help me out so that I can really grow my business.
That's right.
You know?
That's right.
So I think letting go, sometimes, you're going to have to learn that, in order to grow.
And it's true. It's like even with the financial world, right? You gotta invest to reap the benefits and the dividends, right? So you gotta put money in to get the money back.
It takes money
to make money. Exactly.
But it doesn't take a lot.
Exactly.
And that's the thing. And I think we get caught up in how much it's going to cost.
Right.
And then we miss out, on the opportunities, right? Like
That's
they were
right.
saying, it goes penny wise or penny. Just the idea that, we're so used to focusing on the pennies, right? When we're missing out on the dollars.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
We're so like, oh my God, I can't afford, when, it's like we're missing the whole boat.
That's right.
Right?
Or the flip side, it doesn't make, if it doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense.
Right. I know. It's just
You know what I mean?
hey, that is true though, because
That's
I've totally been there.
Yeah.
Where I'm so worried about this little thing. I'm like, are you kidding me?
That's right.
Pay the whatever, the $10 or the $20, even $100. Okay, do that, because that's going to put you in a better position down the line.
That's right.
Like you have to invest in yourself, and you have to invest in your business.
That's right.
And it might cost you something now, but you're going to reap the benefits down the line.
That's right.
So that's what we have to do
That's
culturally, because I've seen people not get life insurance
Oh,
because they're worried about paying $40, $30 a month, and I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like, really? I'm like,
I'm glad you brought that up.
Is
Yes.
not worth
I continue to say
30,
that.
40,
Yes.
And let's say you're older. Your life is not worth
Yeah.
$50 a month, when I know, come on now, I know you're going out to dinner, I know you're doing,
Exactly.
and people think they have to give up something. It's not so much that you have to give up, but think about it.
Yeah.
It's like, do you value your life?
Yeah.
And it's not just about you,
Yeah.
because you're not going to be here.
Yeah, and Burley, I still continue to know people
Yeah.
that when I talk about life insurance and I say to them,
They roll their eyes.
not even roll their eyes, they either
Yeah.
don't know about it.
Okay.
Like, it's like, because I tell them, like, God forbid if something happens to you, especially those that are parents.
Yes, of
You
course.
know, do you have that
Exactly.
financial
Right.
backing that? Because I had a friend who lost a parent, and they were like, I had to scrap money, and I'm like, because it's expensive.
Of course.
But if you had life insurance,
Right.
one less thing to worry about.
Exactly.
Speaking of life,
Yeah.
I want to switch it up real quick.
Okay.
I wasn't even going to ask you this,
Uh-oh.
but I think this is important.
Okay.
We talk about life insurance. This country needs a big life insurance because God knows, and it's a growing thing, but Black Lives Matter,
Oh God, yes.
mass shootings all over this
Of
country.
course, yeah.
I just want to hear your thoughts on that. What insight or thoughts you have in regards to all this that's happening?
I feel like we're in shock. I
Yeah,
feel like we're in
Yeah.
shock. I mean,
yeah,
this past year, we're starting to, go back to normal, whatever that means. But my concern is that, we're going to forget quickly.
back to business as usual.
It's going to be back to business, and, I already see it, and I just think, obviously the George Floyd case, was just one of so many, and yes, in that instance, we got some justice, but it's really just the tip, right? It's just the tip of the iceberg. But there are so many issues that we are just not even addressing.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or, people are out there marching and protesting, and I just pray that it leads to some real change, you know what I mean?
Right.
And, and I just have to applaud them, and I have some friends who got involved, and they were like, the people who are in it, they are really in it.
Right.
They have, at this point, just going back to normal is going to be very hard.
Right.
For them.
Right.
Yeah. It's built into their lives now.
Yeah.
Thursday, there's the regular, the protests, for this or that issue. And so I just think, I just feel like we have so far to go. And I really feel like, we're at this pivotal moment. But I also feel like it's very easy for us to go back. Right?
That's
because
right.
we get comfortable. Yes, we got this justice over here. But I don't know. I feel like it, by the end of the year, who's really going to be focusing on George Floyd anymore?
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
And what about all of those parents who didn't get that justice?
Speak on it.
And then there are some people, even with the case, right? Supposedly there was an issue with one of the jurors.
Correct.
So they're going to try to steal that back, even the victory.
That's right.
Right? So I just feel like it's very tentative. I feel like we can't even celebrate that because it's like, even that week,
That's right.
we had another killing
right.
of another young man.
That's right.
Supposedly by a cop accidentally, right? Who was a veteran.
Yeah.
So it just makes me concerned, for us, as a community, people of color.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, there's still the potential to have the backlash.
That's right.
So if we're not reforming, the prison system, and we just have so much work to do. So, I do want to be optimistic, but at the same time, I don't want to be naive.
That's right.
I don't want to feel like, we got this victory, we can relax now.
Yeah.
It's all good. And so,
yeah.
I just think, it's the journey continues. And throughout this whole movement and the protests and everything, there was a time where I felt like, okay, I'm going to do my part by representing, my community, by being here, by keeping my doors open.
Right.
Because I felt like, oh my God, I'm not doing enough because I'm not out there, on the street. But, I was laid off of my job. That good job, at the end of 2019. The blessing was that being, this whole thing has allowed me to be in my business.
That's right.
So that's kind of the twisted part.
Yeah.
Because if I still had that 9-to-5 job and I was working 40 hours there and another 30 hours here, something had to give. But I also felt like, COVID hit, had to shut my business down. I'm on unemployment. I was like, okay, I'm giving too. So I think, for the people who kind of feel like they're not doing enough or whatever, I think, we have to do this work on a lot of levels.
That's right.
And I think being that entrepreneur, being that person who follows their dream, being consistent, right? You doing this podcast, okay, for 3+ years, going on 4 years, that's still part of this work too. Mm-hmm. So I don't think it's only one way, you know what I mean? I feel like, we all have to do our part,
That's
you're
right.
an educator, and I would say as an entrepreneur, that's radical.
That's facts. Yes.
That is radical too, because you're putting your life on the line.
That's right.
I mean, my business is at this point, I have a storefront, but it's not paying my bills yet.
Yeah.
So I think it's a lot because I just feel like we're giving on a lot of levels, and I feel like we're still kind of moving,
right.
but we haven't processed all this yet.
Yeah, no, that's right.
And if you really think about it, like the first 6 months, that was traumatic. It was just like, oh my God, literally, we could have died.
Facts.
We could have died, and you're just like, oh my God. But now we're over it. We don't even want to wear a mask.
Yeah.
We want to be all crowded up in spaces. You know what I mean? Like so quickly, we're just.
And it's interesting.
It's over. Right?
Shout out to my brother Brandon B. the Symbol, because he said this, and I found it interesting. But I think it's much harder. It feels this whole situation is much harder to get out of it than it was when we came in it. Mm-hmm. Like the process of getting back to normalcy is really like because the question is, someone said, the first thing you ask is, hey, how's it going? Hey, I'm okay. Did you get vaccinated? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's very interesting. So I want to, as we always do in the Know Thy Shelf, is we ask guests to bring something that comes out of their shelf. Ooh. What you got for us today?
This is not just a 2020-21 planner. In the back of it is a picture of my mama.
Shout out to mom.
So we were talking about mom. And as you can see, she's a very vibrant woman.
Come over here, girl. This is my daughter Genesis. Shout out.
Yay! Woo! Future director.
That's right.
So this is my mama Genesis.
Wow.
AKA Miss Juanita. Miss Juanita. But my mom, obviously, I love my mom. My mom inspires me. She supports me, and my mom is she's my everything. And, what I got from her is just that vision. You know what I mean? Just being optimistic. Not naive, but, my mom plays the lotto.
Hey, still.
Religiously. And she has invested so much in it, but she's always thinking about what she's going to do with that. Right?
Right.
My house, obviously, I'm going to take care of you and your brother, but it's always, I'm going to take care of my family, I'm going to take care of my friends, I'm going to, but she has a vision for it. So, I tease her about it, and, whenever there's a mega million, mega anything, she's like, don't forget to play it. I'm just like, okay, mama. Right? I'm not even thinking about that. But she's so focused on that. One day she is gonna win.
Yeah.
And this is not telling people to go out and play the lotto, because she has also learned to save her money. But obviously she got this information later on, right? When I was able to tell it to her or teach it to her. But on her salary, though, she's a homeowner. First of all, she's retired now. Okay, but my mom is 68. Okay, wow. I don't want to tell her age, but she's not. She is amazing. 68, and this was just last year when she took this picture. So this is not like an old picture at all.
Wow.
My mom walks every single day, almost 5 miles. Right? She goes to the gym 3 times. Okay. 3 times a week. And when she doesn't walk, she actually misses it. I'm like, okay, that's a little crazy, but she loves it. She's active. She's like, and she's a comedian, so that's the other part. That's where I get the.
I was gonna say,
yeah. Because my mom, her dream is to one day, be like a household name. Like she's still to this day waiting to go on the Steve Harvey show, right? And trust me, she would turn the show out too. Okay?
I bet.
She's outspoken. She's creative. As you can see, she's fashionable. Yeah.
She's glowing.
She's literally glowing. She took this in Florida. She loves being in the pool.
Yeah.
I love my mom to death.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't have this business.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be where I am, without her, because just her vision. She didn't go to college, but she always supported me and encouraged me, and every crazy little thing I was doing. Like, I'm always taking a class, always learning something, you know what I mean? She's always like, okay, like, you do that. So, yeah. So, my mom is my everything.
I see it right in your
eyes.
I get teary because I know.
Mom, oh my God.
Yeah.
But, she's just a beautiful person, inside and out, but she's real.
And it's interesting.
She's real.
I believe it. Shout out to Reverend Lee, because he reminded me. I said to him, and I got teared-eyed when I told him that probably the reason I believe in God is because of my mom.
Of course, yeah.
It's just my mom. Like our moms are God in the flesh, walking on earth.
Yes.
And it's so important. It's just so important.
Absolutely.
And I'm grateful that you shared that with us, because I know how much she means to you. Mother's Day just was around the corner. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I know the Mother's Day episode, but Mother's Day is every day, because we have to. As Nori says in the Drink Champ shout out, we got to give flowers to people while they're still alive.
Yes, of course.
Mother's Day is every day, so give a flower to mom. Tell mom I love you, and shout out to my mom. Shout out to Ida Hidalgo. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to my daughter's mom. She's awesome too. Shout out to all the moms out there. Absolutely. And so grateful, because if it wasn't for moms, you wouldn't be here. And I see her in you. She got that spirit in you. You know what I'm saying?
My mom, trust me, I've come a long way.
Yeah.
I was this little serious kid, but now I'm my mama's child. So I can tell some, I can tell some raunchy jokes.
Let's keep it PG for that.
Yeah, right? Yeah. No,
Burley.
Without her, oh my God,
it's
like I
beautiful.
said, I would not be where I am.
Amen.
And I have a vision even more.
Oh,
she doesn't
course.
think small. She thinks big. I'm like, okay, mama.
Super facts.
She
yes.
thinks big. She's like, when I win the lotto, I'm gonna buy you your wine bar. You won't have to worry about these loans and grants and stuff. I'm like, okay, mama.
Burley. If people need to contact you, reach you, give us all your information. If they're in Newark, shout out to Brick City, shout out to Jersey. We're here in the building. If they need to reach out to you, where's your information and all that good stuff?
Okay, well, my business is called the Divino Tasting Room, Eatery, and Lounge. Just going to point to the camera. I'm located at 38 Maiden Lane, Newark, New Jersey, right in downtown. And I'm in Teachers Village, okay? So if you know Newark, if you know where the Marriott is, I'm literally one block over. I am on Facebook, okay, under the Divino Tasting Room. And where else? Also on IG. Divino _divine, of course, right? Okay, so that's my IG.
Okay, cool. Okay. All right. Burley, as you know, again, I'm so proud of you, yo.
Thank you, Walter.
Like, we don't tell each other, even adults. I feel like adults, we tell kids, like, oh, you did a great job, we're proud of you. But we never tell adults, like, I'm so proud of you.
I am proud of you. And I love you. And
I love you, yeah.
Thank you for this opportunity and just trusting me.
Yeah, no doubt, yo.
And I love, that you're doing this. You know what I mean? And that, that you are growing in your financial life, in your personal life, and I just love how you respect your mom and your parents, and foundation, you know what I mean, has rooted you, you know, and you're so humble. You know what I mean? I mean, you could be running around here like some conceited, you know, but you know, you're just a humble guy. You know what I mean? You know, and that's rare. You know what I mean? Because you could definitely be, oh, I'm educated, I got this, I got that, but you're always the same. You know, humble, but also you have a spirit of community, you know, and giving back. And I just love how your mom, you know, also instilled that in you, you know, that spirit of service, you know, and giving back. So thank you for that.
Thank you. And we say our woman to that, you know what I'm saying? But,
I like that.
You know what I'm saying? But as we always do, to close us out, we end with a quote. And as always, the GOD has inspired me. And this quote comes from Audrey Hepburn.
What?
Yep. And it reads as such. Okay?
Wow.
As you grow older, you will discover you have two hands. One for helping yourself, the other for helping others. Peace, family.